Here we go. Good?
What's up, man?
How you feeling?
Oh, man, I feel great. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man, I'm in amazement at your history in the business. Unfortunately, we can't get into every accomplishment that you have because we'll be talking to midnight tonight. But I
Thank you,
do
man.
I do want to highlight some of the greatest achievements of your career.
Oh, thank
So I'll try to go through the timeline as straight as possible. And correct me if I'm off a little bit, but
you.
I did detail some of your biggest moments that I think the world should hear, and we should give you your flowers while you're still here.
Thank you.
So before we go any further, can you tell us where you were born and raised?
Crenshaw, Crenshaw area of Los Angeles, where I'm at right now. Yeah, born and raised. It was kind of a unique thing for a white family. There weren't too many of us in the neighborhood. My dad bought the house when all the white people moved out. And so, it was really helped me get involved in black music from a very early age.
What was that like, being one of the only white families in the neighborhood? I mean, how did your dad, what was his thought process? I mean, it seemed like he was cool enough to, one of the coolest guys to, not let that affect him. What was going on with your family during those days?
Right. Well, my dad was an interesting man. He was definitely like cool enough to not care about racism or being I guess living in an area that was primarily black didn't bother him. But he wasn't like a hip cat. He wasn't like all hip to black culture and all like that. He was trying to save money. He was trying to buy the house he wanted to live in with the amount of money he could afford to spend at that time, and to get the nice house with the beautiful view, because we lived in Baldwin Hills area, right above the jungles, in Crenshaw. And to be able to have this kind of a house and be essentially located to the city, there was nowhere else. So that's why he ended up doing it. And yeah, I mean, it worked out amazing for me.
Right. What was a day in the life like for Paul Stewart as a teenager growing up in Crenshaw?
Oof. Well, I was really into music. I was an early proponent of cannabis, long before it was even close to being legal or anything like that. So, taking the RTD bus through the hood, through the jungles to go to school and, listen to music. I was really into my brother was into rock, so he got me into that, and then my friends in the neighborhood got me into all the like funk and the little bit of hip hop that we were starting to get out here. So, I was into skateboarding. I was a pretty average white guy to be in a black neighborhood. That I was into skateboarding. I liked rock music as well, as other things too.
Right. Any obstacles you had to endure, or was life pretty pleasant back in the day?
I didn't have any terrible obstacles. No, I wasn't facing a lot of racism or anything in Crenshaw from the black people that lived there. And my father had done well. They were very strict in some regards, but I mean, strict is not the right word. They were, my father was not the type to just like spoil you. If you wanted something, you had to work for it. Right. So, it kind of taught me the hard work ethic, but no, I didn't have, I had it pretty good. You know what I mean? I would say I was pretty blessed. I'm pretty fortunate.
Take me back to some of your musical influences before you decided to get in the music biz and DJ. And what was Paul Stewart listening to earlier on?
Well, when I was really young, I was buying 45s, and those ranged from like the best music ever, like Sir Duke, Stevie Wonder, like Billy Preston, Will It Go Round in Circles, to literally the worst music, like the Carpenters. Like, you remember, I'm a lot older, so like, there was a lot of pop music. I've always had an interesting ear. I loved the Jackson 5 and I loved the Beach Boys when I was a little kid. So I always liked kind of real pop stuff, and also had a appreciation for grittier music and things like that. Like I said, a Billy Preston, I'm listening to as a little kid and appreciating, you know what I mean? So what I got exposed to, and there was Station K, KHJ, the real Don Steele. So they would play a mix of everything was pop music, you know what I mean? And then, like I said, my brother was really into rock, like the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, like the classic rock stuff. So he was exposing me to that. And then on the radio and all that, I was hearing this other stuff. And then in my neighborhood, as I got a little bit older, it was like Rick James, you know, it's like The Time, you know, it was like, you know, Cameo. It was like the Daz Band, you know, it was like all that funk, you know, that West Coast. We ride with the funk out here hard, you know, so.
Right. Take me back to how you got into DJing.
It's kind of a funny story. I was in college, freshman, and, you know, me and my roommates were always playing loud music, and the guy who throws the little the dorm RA or whatever, he came over and he said, "You're playing your music so loud all the time, you're going to do the music for the next dance." And unbeknownst to me, this guy changed my life, you know what I mean? Because at the first party, I made a pause tape. I didn't have turntables. So I made a pause tape. You know, you play the song, so then you pause and you play the next song, you know. And it wasn't just hip-hop, though. I mean, there was a lot of hip-hop on there, but it was like, this was the 80s. So new wave is a big deal, you know. And Motown oldies and all that kind of stuff also was playing. And then I had a turntable, so I had the tape at the dance, and then I had a turntable to play a record when I had to switch the tape onto the other side. So that was the first dance I ever did. I mean, I wasn't technically DJing, you know what I mean? But shortly after that, a buddy of mine, Ernie Rodriguez, he had got a settlement. He bought some turntables. And so we started a crew. There was a brother named Little Red, who was from Las Vegas, and he was an affiliate of Uncle Jam's Army. So the three of us started a DJ crew. I was booking the gigs. I had a lot of the records. Ernie had the turntables, and Little Red was like a DJ beyond, you know, like he could really DJ. We were just kind of learning, you know, figuring it out.
Right. Can you take me back to some of the dues you paid earlier on as a DJ? Some of the parties, what did you have to go through to get your name known at this time?
Wow. Well, I mean, first of all, you got to buy every record that comes out. You got to own a lot of records. You got to be shopping. You know, if you don't have the records, you know, there's no downloading stuff off the internet. There's no, you know, all that stuff was years to come, you know? So, sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to get my charger in here. Is it okay if it's crooked? I don't know. I'm sorry, man.
You're good.
Okay. Give me 1 sec. Sorry.
All right.
Hand in there. Let me get this back. Okay. So, I'm sorry, man.
You're good.
So, anyway, you know, carrying crates, man, like 3-4 crates for all the parties. So, you know, that was a big deal. I mean, just doing a lot of shitty parties where you didn't get paid. Parties where you just did it because people were there and they wanted to DJ and they want to party, you know, maybe get some beer or something. You know what I mean? You have a good, you're doing it for the love of, like, you know, making people dance and have a good time. And especially when you're learning to DJ and you're first getting started, I mean, just any chance to get on the wheels, you know what I mean? So, you know, and then years after you start to get paid as a DJ, you start to do more, but still, when there's that good crowd, you can play those real records that you really want to play, or it's a really hot night, you know, you jump up there. It's not about the money. You know what I mean? It's not about, you know, and I appreciate guys that are really getting paid as DJs and all that. And that's cool. And that's great. But if you loved it, I mean, even the best DJs, if they love it, you know, how much of they get paid when they're at a party and it's like that right crowd, that right audience, they're going to, you know, they're going to do it just to do it. Right.
Can you take me to what's next? What was your next big break after DJing? How did Paul Stewart get noticed?
I started, well, it was kind of through journalism, through writing. I started a magazine called the LA Informer. It only had 2 issues, but we interviewed NWA, Latifah on her first trip to LA. NWA, I remember they said, "Can we take out guns for the pictures?" And we were like, "Yeah." And they're like, "No other magazine has let us take out guns for pictures in the magazine." So they were all impressed that we let them take out guns, you know, for the picture. Their guns. I'm sorry. That they were allowed to use their guns as props for the picture. Right. That's what they were happy about. So it was, you know, it was kind of impactful. And through that, I met a guy named Dean Porter, and he worked at Arista Records. I was working at a record store, famous LA record store called Cranes. I had like 2 or and their R&B customer, it was kind of a little bit of a, you know, disconnect. Like, you know, the hip hop, he wanted hip hop, and it was kind of offending to the old school R&B. You know, it's kind of hard for people maybe to understand now, but hip hop was that new and radical, you know. So I worked there for a couple hours a week. Steve Crane was nice enough to, you know, give me an opportunity. And I met this guy from Arista, and I got an internship. So that was my first like official gig in the industry.
And what did that lead to? Did that eventually lead to Delicious Vinyl?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That was my first job, was at Delicious Vinyl. I was promoting Young MC and Tone Loc. But at the same time, when I was interning at Arista, I started doing clubs like Water the Bush out here, which was Ice-T and Africa Islam. We're affiliated with Africa Islam, DJ'd at it. And so it was like a big, we had all kind of like De La Soul, L Cool J, all these people performing there. So I was like I was involved, promoter, manager of the night there. And so I was involved in some like, you know, influential big hip hop parties and things, both either as a promoter or DJ during that time.
What were some of your earliest job duties working at Delicious Vinyl?
Man, hailing taxis for Young MC in New York City. I remember you know, was to deal with all the record stores and try to get them to place our songs higher up on the charts. And I was retail marketing, but it was such a small company too. When soon after I got hired, they sent me to New York for New Music Seminar. So I was taking Young MC, or I was helping take Young MC around and stuff, and promoting him at the New Music Seminar. And you know, it was a very small company. Def Jeff was one of our artists, Body and Soul, that had D Barnes. Mellow Man Ace was not on the label, but he was super affiliated because they had produced him through their production company to Capitol, so he was like family. I mean, Tone Loc, and it was a very, hip hop was such a small scene. It had Tony G, Julio G, all, you know, there was all these like hip hop people that would come around. Steve Rifkin's office was right upstairs. And so it was a really good environment. And, you know, Mike Ross and those guys really looked out for me. And I returned the favor, you know, years later when I brought him to Far Side.
Right. Before we go any further, you've got a lot of labels and titles. If you can briefly break down a few of the terminology so that when we go further, people can understand what it is that you've done. What did you do as A&R? What is the duties of an A&R?
Well, that's to basically find talent that you sign. You know, that's the person who signs the new groups. And then, you know, you kind of help A&R their projects too. You know, you help create the records.
Music supervisor.
Okay, that's for movies and TV. Your job is to help, and it can be a little different on every project. Like a movie like Hustle and Flow, you know, I'm helping to make the music. Sorry.
All good. All good.
I'm helping them create the music that's being performed in the film. So obviously I'm gonna have to work on it a lot before. But as a music supervisor, your job is to help with all the music needs for a film or TV show. So that can be creating new music, helping them, you know, also deal with the licensing, you know, suggesting music that should be done, and then doing physically clearing everything too. Music supervision is a very diverse job. It can be very different depending on the project. It can be super creative, and it can also, you have to do all the administrative part too. So it's a lot of work.
Brand manager.
I haven't really done too much brand managing, but that's more about like kind of overseeing the whole project and marketing and, you know, just everything to do with that project.
Gotcha. From there, I believe you formed one of the earliest street promotion companies, PMP.
Yes.
Can you tell me how that came about? What was your frame of mind in forming this, and what did you hope to accomplish?
Man, it was none of that. It was my friend Curtis Harmon was a DJ at K-Day. After my job at Delicious, my friend Matt Robinson had started a label that was distributed through Island, and that kind of went away quickly, and I didn't have a job. And Curtis Harmon from K-Day was like, hey, this company asked me to do street promotion on this record. And, you know, we weren't the first street promoter, you know what I mean? But it was very new. He's like, I don't do that or really know how to do that. Like, you want to do that with me? And I said, sure. And so I started a company and we did that account together. And then I went on and just, you know, I got hired by Tommy Boy on retainer. So I worked De La Soul's first album, Queen Latifah's first album, Naughty by Nature's first album. We worked Cypress Hill's first record for Columbia, the Brand Nubian, a lot of the Electra stuff that Dante signed, Brand Nubian, Pete Rock, Leaders of the New School, you know, and so, you know, like with Leaders of the New School, this is a kind of a cool fact. I put on the first Leaders of the New School show in LA. So first ever Busta Rhymes in LA show was at a club I did called Hang 10 with some partners out here and stuff. And so, you know, as a street promoter, you just try to help break the group however possible, you know, in the streets.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned a lot of great golden era artists. What was it about those artists that caught your attention?
I mean, it was
Well,
exciting.
let's
Yeah,
go
yeah.
down the list. Naughty by
Okay.
Nature. Naughty by Nature.
I mean, Tretch, MC, you know, just spitting bars, you know, and but it was also like it was some of the early kind of like we think of these as big pop songs now, you know what I mean? Like, you know, but this was a new thing, the pop hip hop record. They were kind of some of those Naughty by Nature records. I mean, KG, shout out to KG. Those were kind of like, you know, formulas that were going to be followed and kind of, you know, breaking ground, you know, for that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, you know, interesting because it was pop, but the guys were so street. So they had this kind of dichon, you know, thing between being street, but also making really pop records.
De La Soul.
So creative, so up our alley. Just weird, funky music to get high to. You know, loved it. You know, just you know, like it just fit our personality because we were into hip hop, but we weren't necessarily like gangbanger type people. You know, me and my friends, everything. So we De La Soul, just intellectual rhymes. I mean, the samples. I mean, the incredible samples. You know, like that Hall & Oates, all the things off that first album. You know, just really up my alley.
Queen Latifah.
Ill MC. I mean, so dope, so underrated as an MC because she blew up in so many other ways and everything. But at that time, she was the flavor unit female, like, you know, just ambassador, just chopping heads off, you know what I mean? And she had always had that reggae flavor. I've been a huge fan of Jamaican music my whole life. And the way that she incorporated like reggae things into her raps and some of her early first, you know, like album stuff is still some of my favorite of the cross breeds of hip hop and reggae, you know, and her like singing melodic kind of reggae stuff that she did on some of the, I mean, Princess of the Posse, that first 12-inch that had Princess of the Posse, and we were promoting her in LA. We were taking that around. I'm blanking on the other song, but I mean, that, you know, thank you. Yes, that shit was fire. So yeah, I mean, I just think she's an incredible person too. I mean, you know, I can't wait to run into her and show her what I'm doing because she has always shown me so much love, you know, and like I said, we took her around PMP, my street promotion company, on our very first trip to LA. And I remember she wanted to try St. Ides. You know, she was like, she wanted to be, you know, she wanted to go to the street and check out some cool stuff and get down with the hip hop culture out here. So great person. So happy for her success. Couldn't happen to a better person.
How hard was it to work with guys like Brand Nubian?
Well, with the Elektra stuff, we really were just working the records. I didn't really have that much dealing with them personally. So yeah, okay. I mean, I knew, you know, Jeff Dixon and Pooh Bah's like famous, like, you know, like not showing up shit and everything like that, right. You know. So yeah, but I didn't personally have to deal with it. With Naughty, there was shit because we had Naughty scheduled to go to these swap meets and stuff, and they were like, that's not really safe for Tretch because of Tretch's hair. It was really like gang influenced out here, that look. So when people saw that kind of hairdo, they're going to roll up. If you're a gamer, they're going to roll up on you and be like, where are you from? And they smartly didn't want to necessarily put him in all these situations that were necessarily going to be maybe getting him pressed or whatever, or the potential, you know, for that kind of thing. And so they canceled some of the things we had scheduled for them and stuff, which disappointed us because we're like we go there, like, but you know, that's easy for us to say, you know what I mean? It's a little different. I'm not walking in there with that. I'm not a black dude walking in with that hair, you know what I mean? And that, so in LA at that time, that was like, you know, some shit. Right. Yeah.
You mentioned bringing LONS to the West Coast for one of their first shows. Yeah. What do you remember about that?
Man, just the fun spirit of hip hop at that time. I mean, Charlie Brown and Busta Rhymes and those guys. I mean, just the, you know, and it was just such a, like, I saw Curious George talking about souls on your show the other day. See, it was like all the hip hop people at that time were so united. It didn't matter if you were from LA or New York. If you spit like that, you know, because it hadn't been like that before, but it had just opened up kind of at that point. Like, okay, MCs are from everywhere now. Come on. All right. You know what I mean? New York is the Mecca. You know what I mean? We all praise to New York. We all grew up off New York hip hop. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, but that was a time where, you know, so there was a lot of appreciation for him out there. It was a lot of fun, you know. And we were, me and my crew, we were hip hop heads. So, you know, we loved the New York, not that we didn't like the LA stuff, but, you know, some of the more techno hop things and stuff like that weren't quite as near and dear to our heart as, let's say, something like a Leaders of the New School, you know what I mean? Or a Pete Rock or something like that, you know.
Right. The time frame we're talking about right now is like 89, 90, 91. Take me back to how you were introduced to Cypress Hill and how you eventually brought them to Columbia and convinced them to sign with them.
I did not do that. But
No.
what I did to help them get their deal was I was the first journalist to write about Cypress Hill. At that time, I had a column in The Source. I wrote about Cypress Hill, and Muggs took that write-up, showed someone at BMG Publishing, got a publishing deal. They used that to make the demo, and then they got the deal. So I say I helped them get their deal because, you know, because Muggs told me that helped them get their deal. So, but my history with Cypress Hill is way far back. I lived in my first apartment when I moved out of my house was in Hollywood, in East Hollywood, near Sunset and Normandy, a real grimy ass neighborhood, like, you know, crack sales and prostitution, everything. And there was this apartment building there, and it was a joke that there was all heavy metalers and hip hop. And in this apartment building lived Prince Whipper Whip, my man Special K, Grandmaster Caz, DJ Aladdin, and DJ Muggs. And then I moved in. And DJ Aladdin and DJ Muggs, who were both world-class DJs at that time, had no furniture in their living room and had turntables set up on the other side and would battle each other. And that's where Muggs formed Cypress Hill. Son Doobie was initially part of the whole posse, and then they decided to branch him off solo. But, you know, I seen the whole thing come together, you know, and I was friends with B and Sen, and I was friends with Sen and them too because I knew him from Mellow Man Ace, even before that, because Sen Dog from Cypress is Mellow Man Ace's brother. So I had a real tight affiliation with those guys. You know, we were all trying to help everybody out. You know what I mean? Like I said, I wrote about him in The Source because I had that column. And so we were all friends and everything, you know what I mean? And I seen them grow a lot as a group. I mean, Muggs is a genius. That whole Dusty, like he really conceived that project. Like I heard B-Real talking about it the other day too. It's kind of like he was learning to really become a dope MC as the group was being formed. And I remember I heard the thing where Muggs was like saying at first, like his shit wasn't cutting it until he changed the voice. And then he came back and he's like he was almost like, I'm gonna have you write for the other guys. Cause you know, you're not quite, you know, cause Muggs was ruthless. Like he had a vision of what he wanted to create, and visually and everything with that first album, he put Mike Miller did the photographs. Everyone hired Mike Miller after that because it was like some real ill. It was so opposite what everybody else was doing. Everybody was on this flashy, we're rich and we're balling all this, or we got chains on us, and they went dark, grimy, like you could barely see it. It was all like saturated and
Right.
grainy. It was all
Right.
grainy and stuff, and it was just a really ill kind of look. You know, that was like hip hop hadn't really. It was kind of a real artistic kind of way to show like a street type of thing, you know. So
Right.